Clock's kicked over to 9:30, so we'll make a start. I declare council meeting CL 24/8 open. Welcome everyone here. Please note that the meeting is live streamed and the consequences of that. So I shall now start with the usual karakia. Aye. I'm not aware of any apologies today. Everyone's here. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, great. I'm not aware of any considerations of late items, although I will note the recent update of the consultation document. We'll come to later. Are there any declarations of interest? As always, Councillor Murray-Bench. There are no public excluded items, and I'm not aware of anyone for public forum, so we'll move straight on into the confirmation of the minutes. So starting off on page 7 with the minutes of the Katikati Community Board, 24 July 24. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive those, please? Councillor Henry, Councillor Sull. I shall put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Minutes of Tapuki Community Board meeting on the 1st of August. Councillor Daly, Councillor Wickers, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Makatu Community Board meeting on the 6th of August. Councillor Ray and Deputy Mayor Scrimger, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Waihi Beach Community Board meeting held on the 12th of August. Councillor Soul, Councillor Henry, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Moving on to the council and committee minutes for confirmation on page 38. So minutes of the council meeting held on the 15th of August. I shall move those. Councillor Wickers, I'll take a second, but I think there's an amendment here. Firstly, the third point on page 50 should read, one household equivalent financial contribution payable for every 10 dwellings constructed was consistent rather than inconsistent with the policy. And did you have another point there?
Yeah, just in regard to the Lorna Cooper's, when she was here in the public forum, it's on page 42. It notes that council has been investigating options for the top end of number 1 road. It's actually the lower end. And there's a lot of confusion about where on the road the problems actually are.
Okay, I think that's noted, and Robin, you've got that written down. So with those slight changes, I've moved it. Councillor Wickers has seconded it. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Moving on to page 57, and the minutes of the council meeting held on the 2nd of September. I'll move those. Deputy Mayor Scrimger can second. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So moving on to the substantial item of the day, which has been we're required to do at this page 63. So Katie and Emily, please take us through.
Oh, good morning, elected members and your worship the Mayor. So we are here to provide a report to Council to consider adoption of the initial proposal for representation arrangements for the 2025 and 2028 local authority elections. Happy to take the report as read and answer any questions as required.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Are there any questions for staff on this one? Councillor Granger.
Yes, I note with regard to one of the boundary adjustments between Kaimai and Katikati, that the line is slightly illogical and that we really never discussed it at the time, and now because of the time constraints put on us by the government, we haven't really had a chance to look at that. But I presume that if people in that area think that it looks illogical and that it should run straight down the river, then they can come back to us with that suggestion and we can modify it when it goes out to the final.
Yes, I would encourage them to make a submission. There are constraints on what on lines we can use. I think they have to align with mesh blocks, and of course we have the overall idea of the right population numbers. But I think within those constraints, there's definite possibility to change those if people submit them. Would that be correct, Katie? I don't want to preempt it too much, but yeah.
No, that's fine.
Councillor Henry.
Sorry, can I ask why there is only one councillor appointed to the community boards?
Yeah, so that's the short answer to that was it was an error, and they
sorry,
should
thank
all
you.
be two.
Thank you.
Sue, is that amendment actually being
So
admitted to the
when we come
papers
to
now?
it, and I'll take the recommendations in parts, when we come to it, well, I would expect the person just to move that it should have two people.
Yeah.
So we don't need to move the recommendation and then make amendments. That's a more complicated way of doing it. We just move it as it should be, if that is what the council so wishes. Okay, no further questions? In which case I will, sorry, Councillor Murray-Benj. I'll guide us through it and if it, almost separately, not entirely. So I was looking for a mover and seconder for the first two, which is to receive the report. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, my apologies. Just on option A, when just the wording here, there one Māori ward.
Which option are you talking about?
Oh, I'm talking on page 71. I just want to clarify something. One Māori ward to be known at this time as Western Bay Plenty Māori ward. One Māori ward means one Māori councillor, is that correct? Thank you.
That's correct, yes. Councillor Vickers.
In the advantages on page 111, I wondered if we should, because it was discussed that one of the advantages of not increasing numbers as in a bigger council was that it was getting too large. I'm not sure the wording around that, but would that is that worth including as an advantage?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the workshop notes, I believe. Is that right? No. No, okay, that's in the document. No, I think that's a reasonable comment to make, Councillor Vickers.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can add that.
Councillor Ray. Yeah, sorry.
Hi, so under the Māori wards, number of wards, sorry, option A, it's just the wording that I'm not comfortable with at the bottom. It says the establishment of a Māori ward provides for a fair and effective representation for Māori. I just wondered if we could keep that but add the word provides for better, fair and effective representation, because I don't feel that that's a true statement if it's not.
So which exact page are you looking at there? So the establishment of a Māori ward provides for better, fair and effective representation for Māori. Microphone, sorry. Well, no, I think I understand where you're coming from in that there might be some who feel it's two Māori wards would be even better, whereas it may be seen that we go some way towards that if we have one. Is that kind of roughly where you're coming from?
Like the wording's okay, if it could just lean more towards that it's a better situation now, rather than saying that it is fair and effective, because I don't feel that it is.
Okay, Katie?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can add wording perhaps around improved or, just noting that fair and effective representation is wording from the legislation.
Okay, I think improved, yeah, that's a good suggestion. Councillor Daly.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Katie, I asked a question offline about the Makatu ward boundaries, and you had indicated that the increased boundary for the Makatu Community Board took the shape it does to align with the parliamentary mesh blocks, and I was just wondering, I asked the question, is this consistent across all the community boards that they're in alignment?
It is, yes.
It's easy.
Councillor Thwaites.
Can I just check with Katie a question? Does legislation mean that you can only be appointed to a community board if you're actually elected from a ward that community board's within? Because that's been the way in the past, but I'm just thinking like Waihi Beach has 2 community boards, only 2 councillors, they're both going to be on both, yet you've got a Kaimai councillor sitting there that won't be on a community board, who could well represent that community and attend. But I realise they're not elected from that board, but is it restricted to only coming out of that ward? Or is that our internal rules that we make and the mayor makes?
I seem to recall that was possibly what the local government commission said, but I'd have to check that, and I don't know if I'm looking at the staff and I'm not sure that they've got the information to hand. So,
No.
Apologies, I don't have that
No, we
information
can
at hand.
find out.
I would
before.
assume that we could potentially do that by way of resolution.
Yeah, we can find
So
that
we
out
can find
before
that
the
and
final,
bring that information back.
confirmation
Yes,
resolution. Yep.
great. Councillor Henry, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I've got a question that it's around the reduction of the Karikari ward down to the town centre. Now, I have
I mean,
had
the
been
community
asked-
board, you mean?
Yeah?
The community board.
Yeah, community board area, yes. Can you just have an explanation so it's there if anyone's listening out there and happens to ask this question of me and I'm not able to explain it effectively? But I'm not sure why that happened. I can't remember why we chose to do that.
I think that's more of a question for us to answer as to why we think that's the community of interest rather than staff. But I mean, I realise there were arguments around, you know, the larger portion of the ward being one community of interest was felt to be not the case, because you've got the rural areas and the urban areas. It's a bit of a judgment call, to be honest. But that's really for members to articulate in the debate, should they so wish.
I guess I'm when I'm thinking about an answer for it, I'm finding it hard to articulate why we did it.
Yeah, and I think that the other point, I'll come to Katie in just a second, is there was a view that the community boards should have similar, you know, areas or be focused on the urban areas rather than have a great disparity between covering a large area of the hinterland and for some of them and only urban areas for others.
Very simplistic question, but obviously those people that we now serve who do come to the community board meeting at times, that it's still, things can still go on as normal.
Well, anyone can attend a public meeting.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah. Katie, did you want to add anything, or was that?
I was just going to add that the boundary adjustments just created a more consistent approach across all of our community boards. Yeah.
Councillor Murray-Bench?
One of the weaknesses, well, there are a lot of weaknesses, but one of them is that Waihi
I'm
Beach...
sorry, there's a question because we feel like we're getting a debate. We'll save it for the debate.
One of the weaknesses is the fact that Waihi Beach does not have its own representative, and it's something that they have pushed for a long time.
Sorry, this is not a question. Councillor Daly.
Yes, it was. So is that an impossible one, Katie? Was it impossible to actually, for us to have actually looked into that?
Sorry, Councillor Murray-Bench, what was the question?
I think you're asking whether Waihi Beach should have its own ward.
Was it possible to actually look into that?
Yes, and it has been in the past, but there's been no indication up until this point that that was a desired option.
Ross Gowdy used to represent it.
Oh yeah, in the past it has. In this process, I've not heard anyone around this table raise that as something that they wanted to look at. Emily.
Through you, Mayor James, I'd also add that that's not something that came through as a key theme through the pre-engagement that we undertook, and the direction from you to date has been to continue with the current 3-ward structure, and that's what's contained in the initial proposal as a result.
Okay. Okay. Right. Councillor Daly.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor again. Katie, my question is similar to Don's question, and I'd wondering about the Maori ward, if the Maori ward councillor would be able to sit on a community board as well. I mean, I guess it's the same question and the same answer, but.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, that's something we can look at and bring back to you.
Because potentially, a Maori ward councillor from a particular area might be quite appropriate on a particular community board.
Rachel wants to answer that.
Through you, Your Worship. Just in terms of the question that you asked Councillor Thwaites and you've now asked Councillor Daly, just having a look very quickly at the Local Electoral Act, section 19F does provide that, or is agnostic in terms of members being appointed to a community board having to be from within that ward. Just having a quick look at the legislation. So that would not preclude, therefore, for example, a Kaimai elected member being potentially appointed to a community board outside of the ward boundaries that you represent.
Would a determination from the Local Government Commission provide more direction on that, or is that, because that was my recollection, although I'm happy to be corrected.
So the process of appointing members to community boards is something that is the remit of the Mayor, together with Council at the beginning of each triennium. It's not technically part of your representation review.
Yeah. I think I will just signal that to appoint a councillor to a community board that's not in their area would be unusual, because the whole point of having community boards is to have that local representation and connection.
Technically, the Māori ward councillor is the councillor at large, so they are on all the...
He is, absolutely. But if he lived in, say, Makatu, then I would choose to appoint him to Makatu, not to Waihi Beach, because that would just be a pain for him. Yeah. Councillor Murray-Benj.
I think Anne is right, Councillor Henry is right. If the Māori ward, if you end up having one, that representative will represent the whole of that Māori ward,
yep,
and therefore the whole of the district. So then to turn around and suggest that they could be on one community board, that'd be like Councillor Coxhead and myself. We're free to go to
okay,
the community board.
I think we're getting into debate, but just to
So
provide a
is
counter
that
to that, someone who's elected in, say, they might be from Makatu, like Councillor Ray. They represent the whole ward, but if they're on they can also be appointed to the Makatu Community Board. So there is a disparity on the area they represent in those different roles. Rachel.
Me again, Your Worship, sorry. I think I may have put you all crook. So section 19F 3B of the Local Electoral Act requires that persons who are appointed as members of the community board must be elected to this council, and if the territorial authority is divided into wards, also be members of the territorial authority representing a ward in which the community is situated. My apologies.
Okay, so I think we've got a comprehensive answer there. Councillor Sol.
Just as a point to note, sir, my second term as chair of Waihi Beach, we had 3 councillors in our ward. All 3 came from Katikati. 2 were still appointed to our board, which obviously there was no choice, but that would have contravened that rule.
Okay, well, I think these are more sort of decisions that aren't directly part of the representation review, so I think they're probably addressed at the start of the next triennium. Are there any more questions for staff? Councillor Daly.
Look, just on second thoughts, I'm a little bit concerned if this is This is, we haven't confirmed the consultation document yet, have we?
That is part of what we're doing today.
This is not the consultation document because it doesn't show the existing community board boundaries.
Through Mr. Chair, tabled item 1, I understand has been uploaded to Stella, which will form the basis for our consultation, and the map has included both proposed and existing boundaries.
Apologies, it wasn't there when I looked the other day. So.
Yeah, it's something I raised earlier in the week, so thank you, Councillor Daly. Okay, are we finished with questions? I think so. Great. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to seek a mover and seconder for the first 2 recommendations, which is to receive the report and that it's considered of high significance in terms of Council's significance and engagement policy. So can I seek a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Thwaites, Deputy Mayor Scrimger. Well, it seems there's no debate. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. So I'll next take recommendation 3, which, to summarise, is that the Western Bay Plenty District Council will be divided into 4 wards, and there will be 2 councillors in Katikati Beach, 3 in Kaimai, 3 in Makatu Tapuki, 1 Māori ward, and plus the mayor. So do I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Joyce. Deputy Mayor Scrimger. Is there any debate on this one? Councillor Murray-Bench.
I can't accept that we have the councillors numbered round the table that we now have. And so in order to have 1 ward representative for Māori, we lose 3 representatives from the other wards. And having represented the Kaimai ward, when I first stood, sir, I stood because I thought the hill people were being walked over and everybody was interested in the coast, but not anything that went on in the hills. And this last term, councillors have been much more receptive to the whole of the Kaimai. But it's a very large area, and getting to Whakamarama and Ohauiti and to Kaimai and to Amakarawa, to the lot, it really is expecting a lot from 3 only councillors. And I think you'll slip back into the issue where the pressure will go on for them to represent the coastal community. And I feel I believe strongly that the number of councillors losing 3 to order to gain 1, I am opposed to, full stop.
Thank you, Councillor Murray-Bench. Councillor Thwaites.
Yeah, I believe this is a good idea going out for consultation. I don't believe we're losing 3 to gain 1. In terms of good governance, I believe a new streamlined council of 9 councillors represents good practice. It occupies in Tauranga City with the issues they're facing, and the numbers of population they have are 3 times ours, and they have exactly that same structure. We have moved over the years to much more district-wide thinking. When I first joined the council, we had 5 different wastewater schemes. We had 3 different water schemes, all with their own cost centres. We had different pools, charges in each town. We've streamlined all that now. The thinking around this table has changed dramatically over the years, and they're much more focused on the whole district as a whole, like we swear our oath to. And I think this is the next step forward in terms of good governance, and I think 10 will be an outstanding number for this district.
Thank you, Councillor Thwaites. Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, I'll be speaking in support. As a new councillor on this term, reflecting on the governance aspects of what we do, to be honest, it can be quite painful with a team this big. I feel that a smaller team will be significantly better in regard to governance. And the fact that that will result in an increased remuneration should justify the extra work that will be required by a smaller team.
Thank you, Councillor Wickers. Deputy Mayor Scrimger.
Yes, I too support this proposal. I believe the smaller council of 10 versus 12 is appropriate, and a very good way of managing the business of council with that number of councillors. I do want to counter some of the earlier remarks about how difficult it is to represent Kaimai ward with 3 councillors. Te Puke is a larger area geographically than Kaimai. I believe it can still be done there with 3 councillors. Point out that a number of ratepayers at the extremities of the district live more than 35 kilometres from the Te Puke Service Centre, and I'd be surprised if there is anyone that far from this building in the Kaimai ward. So I have no problem in supporting this proposal.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour. Councillor Sol.
Sir, basically, I understand and appreciate the bringing the size down. I think it does lead to better, well, shouldn't say better, but a easier run council and hopefully to good results with governance. I do straight away say that again, Waihi Beach, which has constantly asked for its own representation and doesn't get that opportunity, basically because legislation virtually won't allow it. Because of the numbers, or we'd have to have 50 people sitting in this room, sort of, I'm exaggerating, but that would be the case, is one thing that is disappointing to it. But I cannot support it, sir, because it has a Maori ward.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. Councillor Joyce.
I think many of the points we made already. I think there is, good governance and not having such a large group. There will be modest savings from having a smaller councillors, from mileage claims to IT support. There's less required. And I think it would be a more cohesive group. I'd remind councillors that all councillors represent the whole district. So, Kaimai will never be on its own. And I also would say that there is a split view in Waihi Beach. Some desperately do want their own councillor and want to go back to the old days. Others, including some of the elected officials out there, are not so keen because one councillor on their own becomes 1 in 9 or 1 in 12, right? Whatever our numbers are. The people of Waihi Beach have 3 representatives around the table, and I know Anne in particular spends a lot of time out there. I spend as much as I can as well. James across the issues as a former ward councillor. If we look to have a member from each community, it would be a very large council. So it's all of our jobs to look after all of our district. And as long as we do that, I think, we take the savings. Andy referred to the salaries. It's a difficult subject because, the public don't like us being paid at all, frankly. But, it costs money. If you're in paid employment, it costs money around this table to come into work. I'd certainly, lose money coming in here. I do think if we want the best for our representatives, we need to make it, without costing more to ratepayers, a system where we can draw a wider pool of people because it's not going to cost them an arm and a leg to come to council when they should be working either in their job or running their business, and that's the situation we have now. It allows for a wider pool of candidates, and I think that's really important because I know people, good people, younger than me, who would think of standing if they thought they could afford it, and they can't, because it just, every time you walk in this door, it's costing you money.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. Councillor Coxhead.
Councillor Joyce makes a good point, and if we do want to attract the best, then yes, people do need to be remunerated fairly, but I guess none of us around the table here are here because of the money. We're here because we want to be, and we want to do the right thing. So, but to the number of councillors proposed, the lower number is, I see it's preferable to the higher number, the 9 versus the 12. I certainly see that. But to the points around the room, I think Kaimai ward is challenging even now with 4 councillors, given, and you can talk about the area or the square kilometrage of it if you like, but it's also the number of communities that are in there and trying to get around all those different communities, which is extremely challenging. And to see the ward get bigger again with 3 councillors is to me is not going to be an easy task for anyone who is in that position. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coxhead. I think I'll just say a few words on this one. I think that most of the arguments being made But this relates also to the next recommendation, which is more about noting the consequences of the current recommendation. And that is that if you didn't go with this reduction in councillors, then we deviate from the plus or minus 10% rule between the Māori ward and the general wards, which isn't a legal requirement, but it's around this table. My understanding is, or my feel of the room, is that was felt to be important. So we can debate that a little bit more in the next one if you so wish, but I just wanted to make that point here. I see Councillor Ray.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, but I cannot support option A. I would like to show support for option B, based on the fact that I'm reading the advantages and disadvantages presented to us today, and they have the same amount of advantages. And I have never believed that one Māori ward candidate would be a good idea. So if we're going to have this, I believe we need to have two. So I am not in favour of option A. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think with no more speakers, it's been moved by Councillor Joyce, seconded by Councillor Deputy Mayor Scrimger. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I think all those against, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay, in which case I will declare it carried.
Can I have my vote recorded, please?
You certainly may, Councillor Mowbridge. So now we move on to recommendation 4, which is really about noting the number of councillors we've just approved. Well, let's just get in there. We'll fall within the maths of it means that we fall in the plus or minus 10% range. So I see that Councillor Joyce is desperate to move this one, and I think Councillor Thwaites would like to second it. So, Councillor Joyce, would you like to speak to that?
Look, the plus or minus 10% is really important. It's important to the public. They understand that, you know, the essence of democracy is that everybody gets a roughly equal say. I would go back to when we were talking about Māori wards out in Waihi Beach. An older Pākehā gentleman came up to us and said, "Oh, you're talking about Māori wards?" And I said, "Yep." And he said, "Well, will everybody's vote be about equal?" That was his first question. And I said, "Well, if I have anything to do with it, it will be." And I'm not claiming to be special on that. I know a number of other people around the table feel the same way. So I think people are very sensitive to this. It does create some perverse examples. I mean, the number of Te Puke people that say to me, "Why are we in the East Cape electorate?" You know, to keep that balance is quite hard. Pahoja, I think, under this proposal would go back into Kaimai. I think they'd be happy with that. They'd probably see themselves more aligned to a Mokoroa than they do to Katikati. It is somewhat bizarre that people in Pahoja were paying into the Katikati Community Board, and I don't even think the board really knew that they were in the community board boundary. So I just think, this is really important to people out in the community, that their votes are roughly equal. And that is all I've really got to say, because that's what this motion's about. I would encourage you to keep faith with the people in that regard.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, I support that entirely. Kiwis are known for being egalitarian, and fair is something that registers high on their radar. And the plus or minus 10% rule is a direct reflection of that.
Thank you. Councillor Thwaites.
Two previous speakers have largely said all the issues. I do believe this is vital leading up to the referendum next year. I think if we can show that there is no favouritism, there is no separatism, there is entirely equal, one vote, one person, sorry, thank you, Councillor Wickers. One person, one vote, applied evenly across all the wards. I do believe this is the absolute mainstay for it, so certainly would be.
Thank you, Councillor Thwaites. I now see Councillor Granger.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to note that I see the numbers in here with a higher number for Katikati Waihi Beach proposed, leads the way to shifting that lump of land from Sergeant Drive down to Pohia into Kaimai, because it would balance the numbers, and that's one whole mesh block, that bit that's been excluded, so it makes it nice, neat and tidy.
Thank you. So, Councillor Mowbray.
This is really quite a difficult issue, and because it's one thing to say the public likes one person, one vote, and equality of votes is vital, but you also know that local people do not want divided representation, and that's what you are voting in today. And the sad thing about that is, come the referendum at the election time, it will make for a very divided council, a very divided election. And I look at Kaipara, sir, and it's worth knowing there were about 6 candidates that stood for the mayoralty up there, and the only one who stood saying that did not want a Māori ward is the man who was elected as the mayor. And he's been true to that view, and we've heard that they're going for a judicial review, but in reality, the law has been passed, and so the referendum will take place. However, when I look at how we operate here with Māori forums, we used to be all around the table, all of us. And when someone had to be appointed to Smart Growth, councillors didn't vote, but the local representatives of Māori did vote, and they voted for someone from Otawhiwhi Marae. That really brought the whole division within Māoridom. So if you pass this, from Māori it's not good enough, and you will find that they will go to the Commission asking for 2 representatives, because you know that geographically this is such a wide area that it is impossible for somebody to represent the whole area, and suggest that they could go onto the community board within their own patch where they were elected from, I think is a nonsense. So, sir, I think this is not healthy for our district, and I'll be voting against each one of these proposals.
Thank you, Councillor Murray-Benj. So I think, Councillor Joyce, you want your right to reply. Is there any, before I go to that, is there any more speakers? No? Okay, Councillor. Oh, sorry. Councillor Joyce.
Just a couple of points. One is, interestingly, the Minister of Justice came out to Katikati a few months ago, and he has put this law change through, saying we must have a referendum. And one of his comments was that Maori wards are democratic. He didn't necessarily agree with them, but they are democratic. And that's Minister Goldsmith, the Minister of Justice, saying that, who was well known for his legal rigour. So I would really like people to stop saying they're undemocratic, because I think if the Minister of Justice, who doesn't support them, acknowledges that, I think we could probably acknowledge that too. I fully take on board that having one Maori ward is not perfect when you have, basically 2 different waka across our district, and such is life. But I do take it from what I've talked to area representatives, and also Councillor Ray's point, it's better. It's better. I think we had to reach a compromise, because otherwise we'd end up with a 14 or 15 member council. Would be unworkable to have that, and it does come with a little bit of extra cost when you add people, just in terms of mileage claims and running costs and overheads and things. So this is a compromise. Let's not make a mistake about it, but it is still really important that we preserve, as Don has said, as Councillor Wickers has said, sorry, Councillor Thwaites and Councillor Wickers have said, preserving that one person, one vote is really important, and so that's what we're doing today.
Okay, thank you. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? No. Carried. Okay, I think we'll record those 3 votes, I think it was. Thank you. Moving on to recommendation 5, and this is that council retains 5 community boards representing 5 communities of interest: Waihi Beach, Katikati, Omokura, Te Puke and Makatu, and noting that the recommendation I'll ask someone to move and second is for, in each of those community boards, for 4 elected members and 2 appointed from the council. So I see Councillor Henry move, Councillor Granger have a second. Any debate on this one, please? Councillor Murray Benj.
I think this is a really good motion, sir. I think the community boards form a very useful purpose within this district, and as time goes by, they will become more important. So in Kaimai, we have ratepayers associations as well, and we can't afford the community boards, so we have a combination of community representation. Sorting out how we consult with them probably is the biggest challenge that we face, but I'm very much in favour of this recommendation, sir. 5.
Thank you, Councillor Murray Benj. Next up, I have Councillor Thwaites.
Yeah, I will be supporting this to go out for communication, but I will be interested to see the submissions that we receive back on this, and I certainly would flag that the communities of Katikati and Tipoki could well extend further than the reduced board we've done now. Waihi Beach is retaining their rural catchment of farmlets and orchards surrounding it, and I still believe that there is a good chance that Katikati and Tipoki could do it, and I know Councillor Daly's a big fan of this, and it would certainly drive the cost. I'm conscious, like Councillor Rodney over there, about the cost of things. The more mouths that help feed these things, I'm not looking to build big bureaucratic enterprises, but I don't think it's actually that badly broken at the moment. I think the Katikati people do have an affiliation to it, and I think Katikati and Tipoki are special towns. I see why, ironically, Makatua is expanding theirs a little bit while we're reducing Katikati and Tipoki. So like I said, I look forward to hearing submissions from people living in that area surrounding those two towns to hear their views. And like I said, I hope they do take the opportunity to submit on it.
Thank you. Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. Yes, well, basically, I do support this in general. I do have my concerns maybe about some of the cutback, perhaps, and perhaps even to a lesser degree with Katikati in its area, because I think there is quite an area of interest, and it could be a little bit bigger than what that is. But the size of the community board area has been too large, probably overall. But I do say, yes, I very much support the retaining of the current Waihi Beach Community Board area, which was the old Waihi Beach Ward area. The people there have in common, I believe, the fact that they use the hall, they go to the RSA, the hotel, they use the shops, they use the boat ramps, they go to the beach, etc. It is an area of interest. So, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. Councillor Daly next.
Yeah, well, thanks, Don, for bringing that up. In light of previous votes against the previous motions, I'm planning to vote against this one, even though we're just passing recommendations for a consultation document. So it does seem a bit counterintuitive to vote against something going out for consultation. But yeah, I've consistently, well, I agree with the motion in general that we retain the community boards, I think. And it would have been nice to have explored some different options this time, as we only get a chance to do this every 6 years. So there were other proposals bandied around, but we've come back to the community board model, which is fine, because I think community boards do, serve a really good purpose in our communities at a local level. The boundary adjustments are my big concern with this one. Shrinking the community board catchment to the urban area just totally misses the point that our hinterlands around Tipoki especially, I note Alan's maybe thinking Katikati is a different case, but Tipoki, I think really, I live 10 kilometres from the urban boundary. I know a guy that lives like 200 metres from the urban boundary who is constantly on Antenno complaining about service in the township. I'm quite happy, and I really like to invite my community board members. So I'm going to lose all that. So the advantages and the disadvantages outlined in the paper are clearly contradictory. I mean, which I guess they perhaps should be, but to say the boundary adjustments will create a more consistent approach across the district is just crazy, because we're retaining Waihi Beach outside the urban area. We're reducing Karikari to the urban area. We're retaining Omakaroa as it currently is. We're reducing Te Puke. We're expanding Makatu. So I don't know how you can call that a more consistent approach to the boundary areas of benefit. But and like Don said, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know, I've heard very few people say to me they're not happy contributing to the Te Puke Community Board if they live in the rural areas. So and that one of the arguments put is that it will better oh yeah, okay, I'll forget about that one. But so there was one last point I wanted to make, but okay. Overall, I'm going to vote against this because I don't believe it's the right way to go, and I will be looking forward to submissions. I did run it past my community board last night. They were outraged that this is on the table as well, so I do expect some strong submissions on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. Next up, I have Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour.
Order, Mr. Chairman. Could that be taken in two
Sorry,
parts?
can you repeat that, please?
I'm just asking for a point of order. Could this be taken in two parts that Councillor Daly is
Excuse me,
asking for?
just wait a minute. We'll just lose the phone call, I think. Okay, okay. Okay, understood. Okay, your point of order, sorry.
A point of order is Councillor Daly is asking for two issues. One, he supports community boards. He doesn't support the boundaries. Could they be taken in two separate issues, sir?
I don't think that's a helpful point for this one, because I think if we get into a debate about drawing lines on a map now, it won't be a helpful debate. I think we better wait for the consultation and submissions. That would be a better place to do that. But I appreciate your point. Thank you. Next up, I have Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour.
Thank you. Yes, the concern I have about this is about the boundaries and the inconsistent approach that we've taken. I actually disagree with Councillor Daly. Currently we've got 3 community boards that are more or less, no, 2 community boards. Let me see. Yeah, 3 that are more or less aligned to the urban boundaries, and under this proposal we'll have 4. So it's correct to say that it's more consistent, but it's still not consistent. And that's what I find going to be hard to defend, is that we have proposed reducing the boundaries to the urban areas in 2 constituencies and expanding them in another. And so I think it's, I understand why that's happened. There are different views around the table, and it's the discussions that have taken place to get us to this point. So at this point in time, I think it's appropriate to take it out to the community and see what they have to say. But I also have to say I'm apprehensive about that, because I spoke to a gentleman last night and asked him what he thought about this. And his first question to me was, what is a community board? And if that's the level of understanding, yeah, I'm going to struggle with it until I see the responses to the consultation. But I think it is the appropriate thing to do now, is to take it out and see what they say, rather than sit around this table continually haggling to try and reach an agreement.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour. Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, just acknowledging that we're never going to get perfection, and that there will always be inconsistencies, but I do see this as aligning at least a little bit more consistent, in that community boards have got the word community in it, and so when you start getting too wide, you sort of start losing the whole intent of what the community board in its name is there for. This should bring more focused and aligns to the more to the benefit of those who the community board do actually serve.
Thank you, Councillor Wickers. Councillor Granger.
Yes, the inconsistency has always been my argument in this debate, and I don't think we've solved that one because we've gone more inconsistent by decreasing some and increasing others. The argument of where people service towns and that sort of thing, the places they identify with, equally applies to a Mokoroa. People from Pahoia go to church in a Mokoroa, they shop in a Mokoroa. People from the Waka come down to a Mokoroa. So that is a non-argument to do that. And my point has always been that they should, I mean, we had the town centre development funds, and there was the town centres that they were to do with the actual urban centres, and that was the identifying thing. So I still believe that all the community boards should be based on the build-up area boundaries. That area zoned for residential area around Te Puke, around Waihi Beach, should be shrunk. Makatu should be back to where it was, and Mokoroa is the odd one out that doesn't get grown or shrunk. It's because it is the community. That's the boundary. That's where it is. So I think we've still got it wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Granger. Councillor Coxett.
I'm supportive of retaining the community boards, obviously. I think, people have come out in favour of them. I think the consultation will be interesting in terms of the boundaries, etc. And I very much understand what Councillor Daly and Thwaites are saying. And I come from a place where if people are prepared to pay for it and get a benefit from it, then what's the issue? So I think the consultation will be very interesting. And I also think some of the things we did talk about was the formality of a community board and what did another sort of structure look like. And asking the right questions is going to be incredibly important in this consultation, because if people don't know there's an alternative or is there an easy way to do it, I think that's worth exploring as well. So.
Thank you, Councillor Coxhead. Councillor Henry.
I'm happy that we are going out for consultation with retaining the community boards. With the representation review, I was hoping that we would be getting some from our outlying areas some comments from our outlining areas, which would enable us to be able to see a way forward to have coverage of our communities right across the Rohe. It didn't happen, and maybe it's something that we will be able to look at later on. Another council and another triennium will be able to look on with that. But we did have a resounding response to people in the submissions that said that they wanted to retain community boards, which we are doing. We had a response that has caused us to make this division between our wards, and I'm just wondering, because I remember when the division happened, I wasn't part of council, didn't know anything about council, why this is happening, and people, there must have been others like me. Now we're changing it again. The story needs to be clear about why we're doing that, because at the time I didn't understand why it was happening, and we're doing it again in a very short time frame. In terms of, that's why I'm supporting this. I'm not, my concerns too are the same as others have spoken around the town, around the table about the town centre boundary, and in particular Katikati. I am in a rural area, but I'm 7 minutes walk from my township, and people still use, and from the rural areas still consider and use Katikati as their town centre. So this is not going to, it's the way I understand it, they are not going to have an opportunity to vote if they're in the outlying areas for people who they communicate with when they have a concern in their community. They're not going to be able to vote for them because they're outlying from the community community ward boundaries. They are very, very narrow and very, very limited in Kalikati. But what I'm hoping is that we will get that feedback and we will hear that from our people, as long as they know what it means. If these boundaries are kept, they won't be able to have a say about who represents them, because they're outlying by, you know, a 5-minute walk or something like that, when they use that as their service centre, and it is very vital to them.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor Joyce.
So I want to cover a few points. One is, why are we sticking with community boards? Well, obviously the public want them, as Councillor Cox has pointed out, but the alternatives unfortunately suffer from a big defect. And in particular, we've been discussed a number of times, ward committees. Well, first of all, communities, there's no community of interest across a ward. You know, and if you did a ward committee in Te Puke Makatu, then the preponderance of votes come from Te Puke, and Makatu people would hardly get a voice. And it's ditto for the Katikati Waihi Beach ward, where, you know, there's already, you know, concern in Waihi Beach about the lack of representation. So if you had a ward committee, the number of votes, preponderance of votes in Katikati would mean that it would be, you know, at best, a Katikati ward committee. The other issue I have with ward committees is the democracy deficit. Yeah, a ward committee would effectively be appointed by council. So that's very top down. So, you know, we did have an option put to us today of ward committees. No one's really addressed it. That to me is the biggest problem. If you're going to have democracy, then people have to be able to have a say. And having nominations and then appointment by council creates a democracy deficit for a community level of government. On the boundaries, you know, I was concerned about the current. We are very inconsistent at the moment. So we have two extremely tight community boards, in Mokoroa and in Makatu. Then we have two medium ones in Te Puke and Waihi Beach. And we have one sprawling one in Katikati. And yeah, okay, Pohoia will get moved back into the ward where it would feel most at home, and that will solve one problem. But, you know, people of Pohoia do not feel serviced by the Katikati Community Board. And I would question whether the people in Tanners Point and Ongateti and Kauri Point, whether they feel serviced by the Katikati Community Board. Right? The Katikati Community Board, and I have to admit the current chairman has, you know, spread his wings a bit further than perhaps previous chair people have, but you know, it's very much focused around the town. Now, I take Councillor Henry's point. She lives 7 minutes walk from the town, and under the current boundaries, they are quite restrictive, and I was a bit surprised how restrictive they are. And I think they're, you know, as Councillor Thwaites has said, let's look forward to the submissions. You know, these boundaries, they need to be tied to the mesh blocks, but there may be a little bit of room to widen them out a little bit. But when we discussed this at the Katikati Community Board informally, I thought member Norm Mayo's comments were very, very illuminating. So Norm's been around a long time on this council, you know, in the community board, in the community. He said, oh yeah, that was done as a bit of a revenue grab. You know, someone pushed for that because they wanted the Katikati Community Board to be as big as possible to get as much money as possible. Now, that was what he said, Councillor Thwaites. So I'm not saying I wasn't here, so all I'm doing is reporting. No, whoever proposed it thought they'd get more money for the community board. So that's what I'm reporting what was said. So that's not a great system of government, or not a great reason for government. So, you know, like Councillor Thwaites, I'm looking forward to submissions. I think the boundaries possibly around, you know, been reduced too far. But let's hear, and let's in particular hear from the communities in the hinterland whether they feel they are well represented by their community boards at the moment. And then we go back to Councillor Cox here at the point. If they feel they are and they want to be included, then I don't see a great problem because they're paying for it, right? This is not a district-wide charge. These are all paid for by the communities where they are. So let's put it out to submissions.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, sir. I'd really just like to thank councillors today for considering the Makatu Community Board boundary extension going out for consultation. I really believe that it's really going to help our community. We charge such a excessive amount and we still can't do anything. So hopefully with a little bit more people added in that we are able to achieve more. I don't think it matters about the, you know, whether you're inside the boundary or not. too much in Te Puke, only because, you know, as Mr Wehapi alluded to us, 10,000 people in that Makatu Te Puke ward area chose not to vote anyway. And further to the point on, you know, what is a community board? People do not know. Like, my people in my generation anyway, we're struggling to see what this council does. So I don't believe that if you just sit outside of this invisible line, that you can't still go to your community board and still have your say. Unfortunately, you actually don't pay though. So that to me is a plus in current times with costs through the roof. So just wanted to say thank you to all the councillors for considering that today.
Thank you. I just have a few comments on this. A number of people have touched on what a community is and how big it should be. And I think I'd note that there's a spectrum here. You know, you talk about your immediate neighbour, your own road. You know your neighbours there. You've got your local area. Maybe it's on a city, maybe it's slightly wider. You've got your ward, you've got your district, you've got your sub-region, you've got your region. So all of us around this table feel some level of community of interest with Tauranga. It's where most of us do probably a lot of our shopping or have jobs and so on. So, but to varying degrees. And for me, the disparity of coverage around the district of community boards was an issue, and the disparity of decision-making and spending on roading or grants and so on. And I think we need to be careful about making community boards almost like a lower tier of local government. Is it that, or is it a community? I think it's a community. That's what the legislation suggests. And we need those people on the community board to have that intimate local knowledge. A community board that covers a large swathe of a ward is a little different from what a councillor can achieve. You know, you'll have the similar connection to those places in the ward, whereas if you have a small community, they know that rubbish bin, that drain, whatever, that needs attention, and that's what the value of community boards is that intimate local knowledge. Making it huge means you might as well just have councillors do the same job. I will just note that there are pros and cons of having ward committees versus community boards. I'm interested in what the feedback will be. There are certainly efficiencies from going for ward committees versus community boards, but we've also heard that community boards are desired by our community. So we'll see what happens when that comes out. But that's me. I look forward to consultation, and unless Councillor Henry wants a right of reply, I'll put the motion. Are you wanting a right of reply? You don't have to.
Well, it's actually going to be a question. So this
I think we're kind of
process
past
will follow the same process of any consultation document where we will look at it, see it before it goes out?
Well, that's the next recommendations.
Yeah, okay.
So I think we better put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. So moving on to recommendation 6, which are the reasons for the decisions we've just made. Are there any? I'm looking for a mover and seconder, but if anyone wants to suggest changes, they're more than welcome to. No? Okay, so I'll look for a mover and seconder for those. Councillor Joyce, I'm happy to second. Assume there's no debate on this one. Councillor Murray-Benj.
This is overall going out to the public for consultation, and we hope everybody does participate in this process, because the last debate about community boards, Whakamarama, for example, Councillor Granger presented so well, and the people there decided that they didn't need a community board. They liked working with the councillors. So I come back to the fact that you squeeze the number of councillors into the Kaimai ward and you reduce the representation. So I look forward to the public having their comments. I think this will end up before the Local Government Commission if Māori aren't satisfied with one, and I'm opposed to it, by the way, of all Māori wards, and you know that, and I think they're divisive, and it's not a question of equality of vote, but it is a divided community council. If I was extended, I would go to the local commission and ask for 2 Māori wards. You're going to have a terrible predicament in this council chamber before long, and I think it's a very serious time that we've got.
Councillor Murray-Bench, I'm not looking to debate Māori wards. This is about the reasons for the decisions we've just made here.
So I'm talking to that. I'm talking to that.
You're arguing for 2 Māori wards and suggesting people go to the Local Government Commission. That's not really what we're moving here.
Sir, we are deciding that we will go out to the community for consultation. That's the issue.
No, that's
We-
on the
we
next.
go
That's
out-
the next recommendation.
We go out with, no, that's the next one is approving the chief exec.
No, that's number 7.
Well, anyway, sir, on number 6, I vote against.
Okay, thank you. In which case, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Please record Councillor Murray-Bench's vote. Which leaves recommendations 7 and 8. I think I'll take these together. Number 7 is that we agree to the initial proposal, and number 8 is to finalise the public notice and submission form. And I would also like to add there that we the CEO be delegated the authority to make minor editorial changes to the initial proposal document prior to its publication as may be required. I understand there's some typos being seen, so I'll make that a recommendation number 9. So I wanted to take recommendation 7, 8 and 9 as one. I think they're fairly straightforward. Councillor Thwaites, are you moving that? Councillor Granger, moving that. Is there any debate on this, please? Councillor Murray-Bench.
Sir, I was happy to move it or to second it, and I just want the public to actually have a say, as we all do. But one of the things that, when it comes to the boundary adjustments, what we'll need to know is, I'll never forget, Pahoia people were absolutely devastated because they had no interest in Katikati, and yet they were thrust in there without really having been asked for their opinion. When we had a meeting down at the boat club, they didn't go because they didn't think it was their area, and so they got left out. So our consultation and informing the public has to be as tight and as better than it has ever been. And so I look at Maramatanga Park, when we were out there consulting and opening a playground at the same time, people weren't remotely interested in anything to do with council. They were there to celebrate the playground, and it was a really successful thing. But as for the consultation, what a waste of staff time. So, sir, that how we communicate is going to be the crunch question.
Councillor Murray-Bench, we as a council chose the consultation method. I don't think it's appropriate to be criticising that at this point.
Well, I am, sir, because even up at Kaimai, in that freezing cold wind where the children were having a cross-country, we've supplied the sweets and the sausages and they loved it. But there was no consultation, and yet we went to that trouble. So consulting has to be one that's meaningful.
Thank you, Councillor Murray-Bench. I will just speak to that. The consultation proposed is quite extensive, and hopefully we'll get a lot of feedback. There's going to be a lot of work from staff on this, so I appreciate that. But that's me. So is anyone else to speak on this? No, so I'll move the 3, I'll put the 3 recommendations, moved by Councillor Thwaites, seconded by Councillor Granger. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we're almost there. We'll seek a mover and seconder to exclude the public for the confidential section. Councillor Henry, Councillor Daly. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried.